Hey guys, Sly here, and before we get into this video, I just want to let you guys know that this is actually a re-upload of a part of a series that I do on my Twitch channel called the Sly Army Tier Lists, where we pretty much rank a bunch of just random topics that I'm personally interested in. And so, because of that, these opinions are not set in stone for how I feel about in the current day. And so if you guys want a more updated version of that, feel free to either check out the DeviantArt link down below or tune in on my Twitch that will also be in the description, or check out my Discord where I occasionally post some more updated versions of how I feel about certain topics. And so do keep that in mind. And also make sure to check out the description of the video itself for the timestamps for the particular topic that is presented here. But in any event, I hope you guys do at least enjoy. I recommend you guys listen to this as either like a podcast form or as just something to play in the background. But in any event, hope you guys at least enjoy. Oh shoot, hold on. Come on, let's show them. Actually, I probably shouldn't do that because I have relatives here. Hey guys, Sly here, and welcome back to another episode of the Sly Army podcast, or Sly Army Tier List, excuse me. It's not podcast, it's a tier list. And as you can see, we're back to doing band tier lists. So I know, it's been a hot minute since I've done one of these tier lists. Last band genre tier list we did was the post-grunge tier list from August of last year, which, like, my god. But of course I wanted to take a bit of a break from doing one of these types of tier lists, mostly because let's just say these are the ones that, ironically enough, bring up the most controversy with them. And I've had to deal with motherfuckers, like pretentious motherfuckers out there who think that they know what they're talking about when in actuality they're just some, random dude who just, stays in the basement all the time. But anyways, all jokes aside, don't fucking harass me. That's all I gotta say. But today, we're actually going to be tackling a genre that actually, funny enough, had its heyday back a long time ago, even before grunge, but still has an underground popularity to it. And of course, I am talking about imagine this being like, whatever, prog music or progressive rock. So, all those like weird bands that focus on time signatures and like sophisticated riffs and have really wacky lyrics about space federations and shit. That's prog for you. But of course, before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know that I will be gone this weekend. I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow, and I will be waiting until I think Monday is an appropriate time for me to be able to stream. Although that also depends on how long, I get back, because I'm going to be in California. So I'll be attending an event. I'll talk about that event probably at some point next week. So don't worry. After this weekend, I will be going back to streams. But anyways, that's actually really the announcements I've got about this. But let's talk about the tier list. So you guys are probably wondering, if you guys are new to the series, I want to let you guys know that there actually are some stipulations that I have for tier lists like this. So number one, when it comes to like music and bands, typically I try to stick with stuff where it's from 1990 to today. So and that's in correlation with our first tier list as well as our grunge tier list. That's mostly just to designate, basically to keep in, loop with music that's relevant now. Also, I'm not a big fan of music from like before, the grunge era. So, yeah. Also, what defines a band as a part of the genre? Under my stipulations, it is typically a band that has to have, depending on if they have 5 or more albums, then at least three of the albums have to at least somewhat correlate with the genre in question. And if it's anything below that, then it would have to be about half of their discography. So for example, if it's 4 albums, then only 2 of those albums. If it's 3, then still 2, and then 1, then 2, and then 1, and then so on and so forth. That's kind of how we're judging this. And we'll get into this in a little bit, but I'm also combining what a lot of people say are sub-genres. I'm just putting them together into the genre that most fits them. I'll get into that a little bit because, unfortunately, we're going to have a bit of a interesting talk about just prog music in general. And oh yeah, and also I pretty much made this a rule since our grunge tier list. I'm not covering any bands that are so obscure that like even the most hardcore fan of rock or metal probably doesn't even know about. What I go by that is anything that has less than 10,000 listeners on Spotify, I'm not going to cover, unless if it's a band that I want to talk positively about. So, because it's just not fair. I mean, again, I mentioned this in the grunge tier list. We literally found a band that only had 3 listeners on Spotify, and I just don't feel that it would feel shitty if we ranked that against everything else here. So, but anything that has 10,000 listeners up is fair game. So, especially with this list, because, well, let's just say that at least modern prog music is not as popular as people might actually think it is. So, and that brings us into the topic of tonight. What exactly is prog? Well, at least according to a website that I've bashed on before, but to be fair, their definition of prog rock is actually okay. It is a type of rock music with complicated musical technique and composition. Things like tempo, time signature, and style will change throughout a single song. That's essentially what prog is. And it's basically a form of experimental music that stems from the psychedelic era. The time when prog music was its most popular was around between 1971 and 75. Bands like Pink Floyd, King Crimson, yes, and I guess Led Zeppelin to a certain extent. They were all considered prog bands. After the 70s, it kind of waned a little bit. It had a little bit of it had a slight, resurgence in the 90s, and then in the 2000s it was pretty huge, but then it kind of went underground again. But like I wouldn't say that it was ever really as big as it was back in the 70s. But because we cover modern rock, which is pretty much anything from the 90s to now, we're going to be covering more modern prog bands. And truth be told, many of the bands that we've already talked about are going to be on this list, some of which you guys actually might be surprised even count. But that gets into the other thing about this list. So, prog music is very different compared to other types of rock music, because a lot of modern rock stuff tends to have a lot of origins from prog rock. It's also another name for prog rock is also called experimental rock, meaning that it's just people kind of figuring out their own formulas for what they want for their specific style. And that is a very loose definition, I will admit. But here's the thing. Um, a lot of music genres actually do have some ties to prog music. What comes to mind, at least in my mind, is actually heavy metal in general. Yeah, heavy metal, obviously stemming from psychedelic, you know, harder styles of rock, but also prog in the early 70s. And so that, of course, spawned in a ton of different genres in and of itself. And so that's the problem, is a lot of these bands, while they're in the same categorization of generally they're called prog rock, this is probably the most diverse genre that we're covering. Even more so than the nu metal tier list. Because, you know, many of these bands, some of which do sound similar, but like there's some others that don't really sound as much. But then that leads into the other issue. Let's just say that because of how experimental prog music is in general, it kind of stemmed a bit of a toxic community, if I'm just going to be straight up honest. Obviously, this is the minority of people, and it's mostly people on places like Reddit, so, like, of course it would be Reddit. Where else would, you know, pretentious assholes be other than fucking Reddit? I guess maybe 4chan, but those are just racists. But that's besides the point. The point is let's just say that a lot of what I've mentioned this in like previous tier lists before, but let's just say that a lot of what I call bullshit genres kind of spawned from. The most obvious example, at least on the tier list series that I've come across, is a genre called djent. I've been a proponent that djent is not an actual genre. It is essentially just progressive rock and thrash. And it doesn't really have enough elements to distinct itself from either of those genres. So if a band is called djent, 9 times out of 10, assume that it is a thrash band. That other 1 out of 10, which we'll get into here, they're most likely a prog band. Or in the case of a band like Meshuggah, they're both. But obviously we'll get to them in a little bit. Or I don't fucking know. There's just some again, let's just go back to the whole thing of prog, because there was just some weird shit to come out of this. Let me look up list of genres. Music genres. So, at least according to Wikipedia, which again, this is one of the reasons why I'm not, you know, a big fan of it. Look underneath the prog thing. Avant prog, Canterbury scene, flamenco rock, post-progressive, which I know there's some post-genres that do exist, but like, prog is not, it's experimental in and of itself. How can it like be like, but whatever. Space rock, and then this motherfucking thing, Zool. This looks like a fucking made-up word. So most of these are what I call bullshit genres, because they're just essentially splitting hairs. And unfortunately, prog music is the most guilty of this. And let's just say that I've encountered so many, let's just say very pretentious and toxic assholes on the internet who try to shut down the conversation. Like, they're not even willing to listen to me. Like, because there was a motherfucker who I've argued with this specifically, and they were adamant, not only adamant, but were straight up just bad mouthing me and like looking down, because this just sounds like fucking prog. It's not like its own genre. There's obviously, like I said, many genres spawn from each other, but this is why I narrowed down my lists. because this is way too clustered. That's why I've condensed it down to where it's varied enough, but it's not like over fucking blown. And also, here's the other thing. Like, if we were doing all of these, like, it would take us like probably 20, 30 fucking years just to get through all of these. And I don't want to do that. So we're just covering obviously the most well-known in this, but more importantly, we're just going to call everything that's underneath that prog banner just progressive rock. And we're throwing in some others as well. So do keep that in mind. Because most normal people who listen to, let's just throw an example here. Yeah, what's a band that like has a weird fucking genre associated with it? Like, most people who listen to a band, let's just say for example Primus, they would just call their music prog. Like, they're not avant-garde metal or like anything like that. They're just prog. Well, they're not just prog. They have thrash elements, but I'm not getting into the semantics. Point is, if you want to know exactly what genres we are actually considering on the list, go check out my wiki that I have in the description in my Discord, because I don't have time to go through that. We've already delayed this, but keep that in mind, is that while I definitely agree that there's sub-styles of these different genres, they are not new genres in and of themselves. So do keep that in mind. But anyways, now that tangent is out of the way, and again, I'm already going to be blocking anyone who's going to be a fucking douche about, music. Trust me, I will bring... you're talking to someone who majored in, like, not majored, but like who took multiple debate classes. I can beat you in a fucking thing. But anyways, let's get on to the list itself. I'm sorry if it seemed like I started off negatively. I just wanted to just lay down my position when it comes to prog music. And in general, if I'm gonna be honest, there's also a group of people on the internet who do consider there to be no bad prog bands. But let's just be clear here. Not only are there bad prog bands, but I'm gonna completely roast and destroy some of these. So buckle up. And if you guys already see the list, you guys probably already know which ones I'm going to fucking rip a new one. But regardless, let's get on with the list. And we're gonna actually start off with all the bands that we talked about before. So this section is actually gonna be pretty quick. So yeah, let's get the ones that we've talked about out of the way. So, and keep in mind, we are actually ranking them based off of how well they do that specific genre. So we're not counting the bands as a whole. We're talking about their stuff in that career. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. So anyways, let's begin. So the first couple bands, 10 Years and Alter Bridge, they are post-grunge / prog bands. And I like 10 Years. They have their problems, but I think that they are an overlooked band overall. And I think their mix between post-grunge and prog is pretty good. So I'll give them the A tier. Alter Bridge, this is another band that I actually gave a lot of credit to, at least in their post-grunge side of things. But if I'm going to be honest, their prog stuff is a little bit more weak in comparison to what I'm personally into when it comes to Alter Bridge. Not that they don't do prog good, but I do think that I prefer their more heavy metal and post-grunge stuff. So, like their first couple of albums. They kind of experimented with prog after that. By the time when 3 came out. It's 3. From 2010. So, I'm going to give them a B in this category. But rest assured, they're okay. Actually, similar story with our next band, American Football. So they are an Midwest emo band. That they're a lot of, time signature stuff. So they count. Which, by the way, I should also get into some of the substyles of prog music. Not genres, styles. There's a difference. I already mentioned gent. It's essentially just a combination between prog and thrash. Then there's what's called math rock or mathcore, which is essentially just, a lot of like mixed time signatures in the music, which is the case with these guys. Then there's space rock, which is essentially, space prog as I call it. Essentially just like, the more atmospheric and like, psychedelic sort of stuff. And then you've got what I call progcore, essentially like, post-hardcore or hardcore or emo, but like third wave emo mixed with prog. There's a lot more of those types of bands than you actually would expect, and we're going to get into a few of them in a second. As for American football, they're more on that math rock / Midwest emo style. I'm going to give them a B. They're good, but I'm not the biggest fan of Midwest emo. Yes, I know, Soy the Emo Emperor, that's in your name. I'm more into third wave emo, so like, MCR, The Used, Cheetos, which we'll get into, Paramore, Fall Out Boy, that sort of stuff. That's what I'm more into. Not really the second wave Midwest emo stuff, though I do think that they are one of the better bands of that entire wave. So, yeah. And then we got Architects, a band that I have not talked about since our post-hardcore / metalcore tier list. Goddamn, that was a long time ago. And truth be told, I think I still stand by what I said before, because I think I gave him an A tier, and I'm gonna give him an A tier here. My favorite album, I think it's called Hollow Point, or Hollow Points. It's Hollow something. God damn it. Not the Motionless in White thing. So yeah, these guys are a metalcore band. Hollow Crown, that's what it's called. Ruin, Hollow Crown, and Daybreaker, I thought were really good albums. And I'll even say this, a lot of people had issues with For Those That Wish to Exist. That was kind of one of their more contentious releases, and I think that was their most recent release. Yeah, well, normal album, by the way. I thought that album was okay. It was fine. So, and again, this is coming from someone who's not even the biggest metalcore fan, but I do respect Architects. So, they're going to be on the A tier. And then we have Armor for Sleep. An emo band. Emo-core band. Emo-core, but prog-core band. And, well, I think they're really damn good. S tier. So, and their new album was pretty good. Go check out The Rain Museum. It's one of the best albums of last year. So, yeah, go check out Armor for Sleep. So, I also saw them out when we were young. Pretty good live. And then we got Between the Buried and Me. I did not change my tune on these guys. D tier. They're not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I just find their music to either be kind of generic or just kind of lacking in substance, at least for a band. And also keep in mind, I'm biased against metalcore bands in general. So, yeah, keep that in mind. And then we got Chevelle. This is one of the bands that I feel like people would be wondering, why are they on the list? Well, for several reasons. Number one, many people have described, it's funny because many people have described 10 years as a diet Chevelle, and Chevelle, a lot of people has called a diet Deftones, and even in certain circles, people have called Deftones a diet Tool. So, it's a whole lineage right there. But in all seriousness though, I'd say starting with Venicera, they went more into the more okay, no. No, even with their debut, point number one. Like, that has a lot of prog elements as well. Like, electro rock and post-grunge, but also a lot of that experimental stuff. Also, Niralis, or whatever the fuck that their new album was called. Which, by the way, that album was really fucking good. I haven't listened to it in a while, but... Neuradius. That is straight up a prog album. You can't deny that. So... But yeah, like, they have enough for them to be able to count. So... And, well, you guys already know my opinion about Chevelle. I used to think their name was dumb, and because of that, I disregarded that. But I've changed my tune, and I think that they're really damn good. They were good live when I saw them early last year. Holy shit. Yeah, they were really good, damn good then, and I still recommend their music. So yeah, go check them out. If you want another good post-grunge prog band, there you go. And then we've got Chiodos. You guys know I fucking love Chiodos. They are one of the, my personal favorite bands. However, I've noticed a lot of people have been giving them a lot of shade recently. And to those people, I reject. They are not that bad. I don't know why there's been a rise of just Chiodo slander. Because, yeah, these guys get slandered a lot. And I don't know why. Or at least they've gotten slandered by YouTubers specifically. I've noticed a lot of YouTubers really don't like Chiodos for whatever reason. But, like, they are one of the most creative bands of that scene. Like, they were one of the few bands that continued not only... obviously they were a Scrams kind of emo, post-hardcore sort of thing. Shoot, I forgot to turn off the ads. But also, they also combined that with, like, Baroque music. With, like, cellos and violins and harps and all that sort of stuff. And it sounded amazing. Like, they were able to make it work. And even though Luminaudio, I will agree, is probably their weakest album, it's still a good album. Like, even Devil, which people had tons of issues with when it came out. But I would not say that Chiodos is anywhere near the bad cat. That's the thing. I've seen motherfuckers put them in F tier. Like, are you kidding me? Chiodos is not a fucking F tier. You don't put Chiodos in F tier. Like, what is wrong with you? Yeah, I'm putting them in S tier. I don't know why people have been giving them shit. I actually don't know why. Because... whatever. Anyways, let's move on to, well, another band that is pretty big in our channel history. Coheed and Cambria. AKA one of the biggest turnaround stories, at least for the channel, for me. But this is actually going to sound weird. Yes, I will admit I do like Coheed and Cambria. But keep in mind, I really like their early stuff. But their middle stuff, basically everything from, I'd say, well, more specifically, Year of the Black Rainbow and the Aftermath duology, and hell, even their 2015 record in Vaxxers 1 to a certain extent, it just does not compare to their first three albums. A Second Stage, Turbine, or whatever that album's called, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3, and Good Apollo 1. I'm not naming the fucking name of that album. And hell, even Vaxxus Act 2. Like, compared to, like, those... Oh, and I guess Good Apollo 2, Good Apollo 2 is okay. Yeah, it just does not compare. It's kind of like how I feel about a band like Linkin Park, where, Hybrid Theory and Meteora are two of my favorite albums of all time. And it kind of dips after that. It's the same thing with Coheed and Cambria. And so, interestingly enough, yes, I have given them way better credit, but it's for their emo stuff, not necessarily for all of their prog stuff. So, because of that, I'm going to put them at a low B. So, and also, I like the Amory Wars. As a matter of fact, they finally released a comic version of Good Apollo 2. So, a special edition of it as well, which is cool, but it's not the most this stuff is not the most accessible because, yeah, it's tied to the space federations that I was talking about earlier. So do keep that in mind if you want to get into a band like Coheed and Cambria. Is they have a lot of lore to their music. Like, think of them as like if every single My Chemical Romance album was just like the Black Parade. That's essentially what Coheed and Cambria is just MCR, but like every album's a rock opera. So, and they sing about space federations. So, but yeah, keep that in mind. So, they're a good band, but not the most accessible stuff. Which, speaking of stuff that's not very accessible, Dance Gavin Dance. Another band that I'm actually surprised we haven't talked about since our post-hardcore tier list. So, I gave them an A tier back then, but that was before I was really familiar with the band. Well, I know there's some controversy with Tillian right now. There's been a lot of issues, but there hasn't been anything that's been confirmed quite yet. Just keep that in mind. I'm talking about the music. When it comes to Dance Gavin Dance's music, again, this is another band that I notice a lot of YouTubers don't really like. And unlike Chiodo's, where it's just like, I don't understand, I actually get it with Dance Gavin Dance. Why? Because, again, their music is not the most accessible, because they're another prog core band, but more on the post-hardcore side of things. And, you know, they have a lot of weird, or at least when you're first listening to them, interesting to say the least lyrics. And I mean, to say the least, with a giant emphasis. That being said, though, I do consider them to be a very talented band. Will Swan, the guitarist, I think is very talented at his craft. So yeah, like, Will Swan is very talented. God damn it, I can't think of his name. The other singer, the one that's been in the band longer than, like, Tillian. God damn it. Not Greg Mess. John Mess. That's his name. Like, he's a very, talented screams vocalist. Not screams. Post-hardcore scream vocalist, whatever you want to call it. And I think that they definitely make a lot of good material. So, but yeah, that being said, though, I put them in A tier back then, and I would give them that, but admittedly, I'm more familiar with their newer stuff. Their older stuff I haven't delved in as much, mostly because, unfortunately, another one of their former lead singers turned out to be a piece of shit. That's a whole other story. Again, Dance Gavin Dance is it's one of those bands that has a complicated history. Just look it up. But in terms of just what I'm interested in, I think that they are good enough. I'm going to put them in the B tier. And then we got Deftones. Another band that is huge in the channel's history. So, and yes, I am counting them as prog. I know people call them, they're alternative metal. that's too vague of a term. I've made that very clear before. But the most similar genre that they are to is prog. They've been like that since Around the Fur, and they've been like that since. More specifically, White Pony. But as you guys know, White Pony I do consider to be not. I prefer Around the Fur, but White Pony is one of the best albums of that year, 2000. And I've even gotten back. I did mention this. I've gotten back to listening to their newer stuff, and yeah, their self-titled Diamond Eyes and Koi no Yokai. I can't ever fucking pronounce that. I'm sorry, I'm not very good with my Japanese. Those are fucking awesome albums. Their most recent material, though, specifically with Gore, I didn't find Gore to be that very good. Ohms is, I don't know. It's a weird album, but I still think that Deftones, as a whole, do deserve their recognition. So I'm going to put them in the A tier. So, yeah. And then we got Dillinger's Escape Plan. If I'm going to be honest, they are not... My same opinions for them are the same exact things as I said about them before, which is the same exact thing that I said about Between Buried and Me. So, just kind of whatever. I don't know, I just never really cared. And then we got Evanescence. Jesus Christ. Okay, fuck, fine. I thought I turned that off. Whatever. I'm just gonna keep talking. It's old bands. Just go watch my other tier lists. Anyways. Then we got Evanescence. Another band that's kind of in that same thing with Deftones, where I consider them to be a prog band, specifically with their first 3 albums. Again, Evanescence is kind of one of those weird, bands in general where they fit into multiple things. Nu metal, kinda emo, prog, baroque rock. They're one of those interesting bands. And well, with their early prog stuff, I do think that they're pretty good. A tier. So yeah, they're cool. And then we got Failure. They were on our grunge tier list, so yeah, we got ourselves a grunge prog band. And they're okay. I do find their stuff after 1996 to be weaker, and that's when they really stepped up the prog stuff. So, not bad, but yeah, I'd probably put them in a C tier. And we got Fall of Troy, another band that we have not talked about since the post-hardcore / metalcore tier list. I gave them a D tier last time. I don't think that anymore. As a matter of fact, their second album, Doppelganger, I've really grown on. It's kind of a really cool, mathcore-y thing, prog mixed with post-hardcore. I know people call Dance Gavin Dance the first swancore band. Basically bands that sound like Dance Gavin Dance. But funny enough, Dance Gavin Dance just sound like Fall of Troy. They were the ones that started that style. But then Dance Gavin Dance made it popular. That being said, I prefer Dance Gavin Dance's take on that style. Still. And yeah, I don't think Fall of Troy was that great. I did forget that they were on Guitar Hero 3 though. Because yeah, FC Premix is one of the bonus tracks. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, I'm putting them in C tier as well. I just never really cared about, everything beyond Doppelganger. Not their debut and not the albums after it. So. And then we've got another band that I've got a big hot take on. Ghost. Ghost BC. 21st Century Ghost, because apparently there was another band called Ghost in the 80s. Guys, I tried. I actually tried. I tried listening to Opus Epidemus. I tried listening to what, I forgot the name of their albums before. Prequel. And yeah, Prequel is the only album I like by these guys. That's only because that album, they added a little bit of that. They added pop rock to that formula. Because that album is way more popular than their previous works, and even their most recent album. So, like, but if I'm gonna be honest, Ghost is just kinda... Not only do I find them overrated, but I find them really fucking boring.
What a shame.
I'm sorry, JC Denton, but like, but in all seriousness though, I find Ghost to be so painfully boring. Like, I mean, it doesn't help that, like, they're trying to replicate a lot of 70s and 80s rock, which is something that I'm not even a really big fan of to begin with. But even then, their music is just so slow to listen to. Again, they picked up the speed a little bit with Prequel, and if it weren't for that album, I would have given them an F tier, if I'm going to be honest. I said that in my original tier list, and I'm sticking with that here. And unfortunately, because that's only one album out of, I think 5 or 6 now, I'm sorry, this is a hot take that I'm going to have to take. I'm going to put them in D tier. Like, I just can't get into this band. Like, I need something that's, like, a little bit faster paced than this. This is a bit too slow for me. I know that they're also a psychedelic and a doom metal band as well, but that doesn't help that it just sounds... It feels more like a slog to listen to. So maybe in 5 years I'll appreciate it, because I know there's been plenty of bands that I've put down in like D and even F tier that I've garnered more of an appreciation for over the years. So, and my music tastes change, but man, but even then, whenever these guys got big around time whenever I was in high school, I'm sorry. I didn't like it back then, I still don't like it, so who knows. So yeah, although to be fair, if I was able to change with Half-Life 1, then maybe I'll be able to change with Ghost. But I don't know, man. Well, thankfully though, there is one band that's a metal band from Europe that I do like, which by the way, a lot of these bands are actually from Europe, specifically Sweden. I noticed a lot of bands are from Sweden. Ghost is from Sweden. Sabaton's from Sweden, and a few others that we're going to talk about are from Sweden. Like, Sweden just has a lot of metal bands. But anyways, Gojira, French metal band. Death metal and prog. And yeah, we briefly talked about them before, and I'm still gonna be kind of brief on them. They're good. They're not entirely my thing, because death metal and deathcore in general aren't really my thing either. But when it comes to Gojira, they're respectable enough, especially since they're not just a straight up death metal band. That's why they're on this list. They are a prog death metal hybrid, and so they're a bit more tolerable for me in that regard. And so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and put them in the B tier. And then we got Hum. Another one of those more psychedelic side of, prog bands. Very similar to Smashing Pumpkins, actually. From the same area too, Chicago. Grunge, prog, hybrid, whatever. I gave them S tier. I don't think they're that level, but I'm willing to give them an A tier. So, underrated band. highly appreciate them. Well, I am gonna put up in that tier. Actually, no. I'm not putting them. Okay, I'm putting them in the same tier as Hurt. I put them in S tier in our original tier list. I put them in S tier, I think, also on our post-grunge tier list. But in terms of prog, they're good. There is better, though. So I'm going to put them in A tier. And truth be told, the same thing is with manga. Why is the Mars Volta there? I haven't talked about them yet. Manga is a band that I've given a lot of respect to. And they deserve it, because they're essentially Turkish Linkin Park, but with more proggy elements. So yeah, think like Hybrid Theory if there was a lot more, I guess. Okay, not exactly that, but like there's a lot more just sort of experimental sounds. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Though I will say, they're not for everyone. But I really like them. So I'm putting them in A tier. Yeah, keep in mind, there's going to be a lot of... I'm going to be a bit more positive to prog, because I will admit that generally speaking, yes, there is some bad prog, which we'll get into actually in a little bit. But that's the thing about prog, is that it has a better ratio of good to bad, at least in comparison to what we've talked about. So do keep that in mind, that like I am going to be a bit nicer to prog. That's going to change after we talk about Meshuggah, though. Don't worry. Which, speaking of Meshuggah, the progenitors of the djent style, non-genre. And yeah, they're fine. I mean, I like Obzen. That's a fine album, but I wouldn't say that they're like one of my top favorite bands of all time. They're a band that I just occasionally listen to, as opposed to like a regular, thing. So yeah. Well, the hate train has finally arrived. You guys are probably wondering, wait, Mudvayne's on the prog tier list, but they're a nu metal band. Well, yes, they are nu metal, but, well, I did a bit of research, and it turns out that LD50, the album after that, I can't think of it, and their self-titled are prog albums. They have a lot of those experimental things, and they have the weird mathcore thing going on in LD50. How you didn't hear it on their song Dig. And, well, to my dismay, they count. Still doesn't mean I'm going to be kind to them, though. As a matter of fact, I'm still going to put them in F tier. I did recently listen to the entirety of the LD50, and it did not only did... Like, no, I did not change my mind. That album is still fucking terrible. Like, it's too all over the place with the ideas. And Chad Gray cannot sing for shit, man. Like, I'm sorry, but he just cannot sing. And it doesn't help that their music is, in the mid-2000s especially, was so fucking boring. And I know I've fought some of my friends over this, but, like, I don't fucking like their style at all. Happy is not a good song. It's terrible. And like I said, like, their prog stuff, like, again, if you ignore Dig, it's just a nothing burger. So, like, no thank you. Which, speaking of fallen giants, Muse. Yes, they do count. Yes, they do count Reddit. They are a prog band. Like, I don't know why motherfuckers are like, no, they're not prog. bitch, where were you when you listened to the entirety of Absolution? Absolution is absolutely a prog album. Or shit, even Black Holes and Revelations. Those, like, also, where the fuck were you when you listened to fucking... Oh my god, I can't think of the name of the song. It was their most, like, on Origin of Symmetry, the most popular song on that album. Yeah, Plug-in Baby. That is prog. You know, it has the weird, like, sort of time signature thing where it's like, I'm doing a terrible fucking thing. Like, like, it's a prog song. Like, and you can't argue with me otherwise. Like, all their stuff from the second law back is prog. Electro rock mixed in as well, but like, they're essentially a prog band. Like, as a matter of fact, the best... here's actually a controversial take right here. The closest, funny enough, I kind of see them as like the Pink Floyd of the 2000s. Like, that's kind of the best comparison I'm going to use. And, well, that's not an unfair comparison. Especially since they were directly inspired by Pink Floyd. So, that being said, their two most recent albums are terrible. Don't listen to their two most recent albums. Will of the People is just awful. And don't even get me started on Simulation Theory. Second Law, some people had issues with. I still think the album is good, but, like, I'm not gonna jump on and say that, like, Muse is the best band of all time. Especially since, like, I did see them live actually earlier this year. And when he brought up the metallic jacket, that's when I fucking cringed. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, they are a band that has lost their way for sure. But I'm not going to discount their stuff from the 2000s because Origin of Symmetry, Black Holes and Revelations, and Absolution, and hell, I'll even bring up The Resistance and The Second Law, and their debut, Showbiz. That is more than enough, you know, positive redeeming values, when you compare what they've been putting out in the past 5 years. And so because of that, I'm going to put them in A tier. So they may be tarnishing that a little bit, and if they continue doing that, I will put them in a B tier. But as of right now, they still have way more good material than bad. So don't get it twisted. Although, speaking garbage, guess who's back on the tier lists? Fucking Mushroom Head. Cringe. Need I say more? Need I say more? Anyone who says that, like, they're better than Slipknot is not, like, that's a red flag in my book. And yes, they are prog. To my dismay, anyways. If I'm going to be honest, they're probably the worst band on this list. It's not even, if I'm just going to be straight up honest about that. Like, dude, they sell... whatever. Look up their merchandise and you'll know exactly what I mean. I'm not getting into that. Moving on. Pearl Jam. Now, again, another band that people are probably wondering, why are they on here? They're not really a grunge band. Well, that's where you'll actually be wrong, because in the early 2000s, they experimented with prog. Granted, it was not very popular by a lot of people. I think it was... Sorry, again, there's so many freaking bands. I know, Pearl Jam... I love Pearl Jam, but admittedly, I'm not too familiar with their stuff from the early... Oh yeah, Binaural and Riot Act. And I'll even throw in Gigaton in there. Those albums experimented more with more proggy elements. And let's just say in the early 2000s, with Riot Act and Binaural, those were not very popular decisions amongst Pearl Jam fans at the time. And truth be told, yeah, I don't listen to those albums quite as often as their first three. So because of that, yeah, on this list, I would put them in S tier if we were talking about the band in general. But because we're talking about their stuff from the early 2000s and also Gigaton, which that album is good, but again, I don't listen to it as often. I'm going to have to put that stuff in a B tier. So do keep that in mind. And also, I will say this, there's some songs off of 10 that I would consider prog, like the song Black or even Garden. So they have enough, more than enough material to count as a prog band. So, God, my nose is fucking stuffy. Alright, we got one more row before we're going into new territory. So, let's make this one quick. Perfect Circle. Good side project for Maynard. I still prefer Tool. To be fair though, I'm not one of those fucking Tool fanboys. But his side project here was fine. That Covers album was easily the worst part they've ever made, but everything else, yeah, their first couple of albums, and then, what was it? Eat the Elephant from 2018. That one was okay. So I'll put them in a B tier. And then here's another band that people are probably going to be very surprised they're on this list. Pierce the Veil. Yes, they are a prog band. You probably wouldn't know that if you were listening to their singles, though, because their singles are mostly their emo post-hardcore stuff. But a lot of their deep cuts from their debut, Fair from the Dramatic, as well as Misadventures, and hell, even on their most recent album, Past Their Nirvana, not Past Their Nirvana, that's their song, The Jaws of Life, that's what it's called. Yeah, that is easily prog music. Again, a bit more of this bass rocky sort of stuff, but like, yeah, if you listen to their deep cuts, they count as a prog band. However, here's the interesting part of that. I actually think that's probably their weakest aspect. Like, again, Pierce the Veil is one of, like, I really like Pierce the Veil. But admittedly, the prog stuff is something that, like, I think is fine, but, like, doesn't compare as much as their post-hardcore stuff. So, yeah, and admittedly, some of the production of their prog music as very early 2010s sounding, which I'm not personally against, but I can understand why someone would be. So because of that, yeah, no. Just like with Pearl Jam, I'm going to put them in a B tier. Like, yeah, two bands that I would probably put in S and A tier respectively. But if we were talking about just as a whole. So, but since we're talking about their prog stuff specifically, yeah, I've got to be a bit more harsher for them. And that sucks, but it is what it is. And then we got Primus. Yeah, I know we talked about them on my new metal tier list, but only for the question of, are they a new metal band? Whether you agree with that or not, we can at least agree that they're at least a prog band. And yeah, they're one of those weird bands. Like, if this is the style of music that you're not into, then yeah, you're not gonna like them. And yeah, they've made some fucking weird shit, and I mean some fucking weird shit. Yeah, like Winona's Big Brown Beaver, aka one of the most terrifying music videos that
I'm not gonna have you guys fucking suffer through. Please don't fucking watch that. Well, shit, even a lot of their music from their debut. Um, yeah, they're a weird band. But they are talented guys, nonetheless. So, yeah, no. Fuck off, bot. Hey, Wazgo, welcome to the stream. But yeah, like, okay, here's the problem with Primus, though. They took a break after their 1999 record Anti-Pop. They took an entire decade until their next album in 2011. And yeah, their latest 3 albums are
it's not good.
Yeah, they're not very good. So I'm gonna put them in B tier. I know a lot of B tiers. Don't worry, that's not gonna be the case soon. It's just I'm judging them based off of how I feel about their prog stuff. But yeah, Primus is just a weird band. Not the weirdest band on this list, but easily top 10 of just weird shit. All right, Raw, aka the prog band that backed up Patrick Stump for his solo career. I still think that they're C tier. Not the worst thing I've ever heard. Their debut's fine, but everything else is kind of forgettable. So, yeah. And then we've got Radiohead. Oh boy. So AKA this is easily one of those bands that has one of those fan bases where it's like the people who are Radioheads are fucking die-hard Radiohead fans. And when I mean die-hard, I mean like they act like that they're the messiah of music. And truth be told, if I'm going to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I just never really cared for them as much. I own a few of the albums, but like, to be fair, I do like some of their stuff, but honestly, I really only like their grunge stuff. Which I know, that's a hot take for Radiohead fans. It's like, what? Wait. You like their grunge stuff? As in, like, the Bends? Pablo Honey? Okay, maybe not Pablo Honey, but the Bends I actually really like. Hell, this isn't even contentious. Like, I know this is also contentious, but I prefer the Bends over OK Computer, but that doesn't mean I think OK Computer is worse. I tried to make it clear last time when we talked about Radiohead, but that did not fly well over people's heads for whatever reason. OK Computer is fine. Like, I think it's a good album. It is not my favorite album, and I don't even know if I agree with people saying that it is the best album, period. So, yeah, granted, I'm not as harsh as my friend Saimori, because Saimori really does not like Radiohead at all. I'm not at that level, but I definitely wouldn't say that, like, they're S tier. I know, another B tier band. That's gonna change real soon, don't worry. But yeah, they're just fine to me. Like, they're above average, but like not beyond that. And we got Sabaton. Yeah, Sabaton does count. I mean, yeah, they're thrash / prog / heavy metal. Yeah, and again, they're another band from Sweden. Interesting enough, I've not talked about them in 3 years. So, I guess this is the time I'm able to talk about them. Yeah, this is the band that unfortunately a certain group of people really, really are passionate for, but for the wrong reasons. Their shtick is that they use a lot of themes and styles from, like, they take a lot of, like, stories and just themes about war and conflict, and apply it to their music. A lot of World War II music. So yeah, you can see where I'm going with that. But even just putting that part aside, I do agree that they are pretty good. I wouldn't put them in S tier, but they are pretty damn good. Like, Primo Victoria is honestly one of the best debuts a band could ever have. And their music has only gotten better. So, and yeah, I wouldn't even say that they even have a bad album. I guess my only thing is that, like, they are definitely a band that I would listen in short bursts rather than, like, in repeated sessions. But as someone who is pretty interested in history, as you can probably see with some of the books back there, although I am probably going to get rid of those books at some point, and replace them with new ones, don't worry. Yeah, I appreciate their stuff, so I'm going to put them in A tier. And also, they've done plenty of charity work, so good for them. And another interesting one, Silverchair. I think I mentioned this in the post-grunge tier list, but only their first two albums are just, like, fully post-grunge. By their, I think it's Neon Theater, that's what their third album's called. That's their last post-grunge album, but also their first album where they just completely dipped post-grunge altogether and went for a prog/baroque rock sound. And that was reflective on their last couple of albums in the 2000s. And yeah, it's weird. I am going to put them in A tier, though, because I think that stuff specifically is pretty good in their own right. It does not sound like the same band, though. Like, it does not sound like the Silverchair that came out in the 90s. So, just keep that in mind. But I still think that they're pretty good. And then we got Smashing Pumpkins, which you guys already know, starting with Melancholy onwards, they basically became a prog band. And I've mentioned this plenty of times, but, like, I only really like their first three albums, which is their grunge stuff. They have gotten better, but I feel like everything from Adore onwards, not that Adore is a bad album, I actually recently listened to it for its 25th anniversary earlier this year. And hell, I also went to a Smashing Pumpkins concert earlier this year as well. Yeah, I know, there were some concerts I went to, but I've been trying to do that more often. They were good live. Yeah, whenever they played their big hits from the 90s, everyone was, like, sawing their mouths out. But, like, I don't know, there's stuff from, like, the past 25-ish years, if I'm gonna be honest, has not reached the heights of their first three albums, and it doesn't help with all the drama that happened in the 2000s and 2010s. Granted, most of the members have gotten together. As a matter of fact, whenever I saw them live, it seemed like they were getting together somewhat. I noticed a little bit of tension, but, like, thankfully it was not as bad as it was back in the day. At least it didn't seem like that. I hope there wasn't anything going on there. But regardless, yeah, I'm gonna have to put them at a C tier based off the stuff that they came with after Melancholy. Melancholy is still an amazing album, but yeah, they went downhill. So yeah. And now we've got another weird band, Sun, or I like to call them Sun O backwards brackets, backwards brackets, backwards brackets. band. Interestingly enough, this is actually a pretty common thing on this list. There are some bands that just straight up just make instrumental music, and this is one of those bands. And yeah, they're a doom / prog band thing. So yeah, their music is pretty slow. However, unlike Ghost, they're not completely boring. But at the same time, because their music is more instrumental, again, it's only for certain times, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put them in C tier. Not a band that I would say would be a band that like you would listen to too often. So unless you're really, really into this sort of stuff. So yeah. And then we've got System of a Down. So System of a Down, I made this pretty clear before. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. Of course, they're going to be an S tier. System of a Down poster right behind my camera. It's the one that I had last year with the thumb as the head, or yeah, that one. Still right there. I see it. It's a great poster. But yeah, like really good. Really good. I hope to see them live Sunday, and that's all I gotta say. So yeah. On the complete opposite spectrum of that is 30 Seconds to Mars. Jared Leto, how bad you've fallen as a man, especially with the garbage that was their new album that came out earlier this year. Oh my god, that was bad. Like, what the hell? Yeah, and don't even start on the cult shit. I don't think I need to get into that. So yeah, no thanks. So they were at When We're Young last month. Why? Like, they played at the same time as Simple Plan, which that was the worst hour of that entire fucking night. Jesus Christ. But anyways, let's move on to another band that was out when we were young, but was pretty good. Thrice. Yeah, pretty good. I know I accidentally put them in the D tier back in the emo tier list, but I was kind of tired. So I forgot exactly what they did. But I can assure you that Thrice is pretty good. Granted, their prog stuff is mostly everything from Visu onwards. So yeah, like their fourth album onwards. Which that album is actually really damn good. Underrated, I'm just gonna straight up say. I think it's pronounced Visu. Is that? Let me look it up. Thrice. Yeah, it's the one with the... Yeah, Visu. Yeah, it's the one with like the weird like eye chart and shit like that. I don't know. This is a really cool album cover. I'm not gonna lie. It's different. It's different, but I think it looks cool. Very like early, like late 19th, early 20th century vibes right there. So, but yeah, that album's really good. And their stuff after that is actually pretty good too. The double album that came out in 2007 and 8 was a pretty cool experimental sort of thing. You know, shying away from their post-hardcore stuff. And hell, even their most recent material has been pretty solid. So I'm going to put them in A tier. So, but yeah, again, just like, though admittedly, just like Deftones, they have a very similar fan base where, or shit, even like Radiohead. Again, a lot of prog bands are like this, where they have fan bases that are really into the band. So, granted, I was a little bit like that with Deftones, and I'm still like that with Chiodos to a certain extent. System of a Down, it's kind of the same way, but like, I'm not like a mega fan of like most of these groups. Oh my god. I'm already tired and we haven't even gone past the bands we've talked about before. All right, well, get your soys out of the way because we got ourselves another band that's like that. Tool. Oh boy, yep. All the Tool fans, they're gonna be posting in the chat now. I think that's what Tool fans do. Like, I don't know. They're one of those weird bands. Although to be fair, really good band, S tier. So similar System of a Down, no bad album. So, or shit, even like I said with Sabaton, no bad album. All their albums are pretty good, even if you're not doing them. I know some of my friends, were kind of disappointed with that one, but I still think, considering that was a 13-year long wait, that was pretty good. So, and granted, they're not always like a serious band. Matter of fact, most of their stuff is basically just them shitposting. But they're still one of those bands that, for a prog band that came out at a time when prog was not doing too well, they did surprisingly really well. And I respect them. And yes, I also do consider them to be a grunge band. Not all their stuff is grunge, but I would definitely say their first 3 albums are. Or at least they have enough elements of grunge. They are definitely a prog band throughout. But, they're pretty good in that regard. And last but not least, we've got Trivium. Another metalcore band, but guess what? I'm putting them in S tier. Their combination of metalcore with thrash and with prog is really good. Like, definitely one of the most interesting of that combination. And I did not give them enough credit back in our metalcore tier list. Like, I should have put them along with Killswitch Engage on the S tier. They both deserve it. So, go check out Trivium. And yeah, now that's all of the old bands that we've talked about before. Now let's get into some new material. So, which, to be fair, I don't really have a lot to talk about when it comes to most of these bands. Because admittedly, a lot of these bands are a bit smaller scale. Like, they don't have a lot of material. But I still respect. So, time to get into some of the weird stuff that we've not talked about. So, alright. Actually, hold on. Before we get into this, I will admit, since this is the first time we're talking about new bands, after a while, I am actually going to take the time to potentially listen to some bands that I don't really remember their stuff for, because admittedly, I'm not remembering some of this stuff already. Such as Airbag, for example. I remember Alchemist, don't worry, I'll get to them in a little bit. But Airbag. Wait, is this the same band? Oh, shoot, okay. Not to be confused with another band that's also called Airbag. This is the prog band, not whatever that band is. Bit of a confusion right there. Let me make sure this is... Again, I can't play this stuff because of copyright. Oh, yeah. Okay, so yeah, these guys had a very 70s inspired sort of thing going on for them. And they're okay. But yeah, because I barely remember what they did, that's not really a big positive for them. So I'm gonna put them in C tier. Again, because they're more of a 70s style group, not really my thing. And we got Alchemist. This is an interesting one because these guys use a lot of, I think they're called didgeridoos. That's right. Yeah, because I think they are an Australian band, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they take a lot of stuff from like Aboriginal culture and they add it to their music, which is a really cool sounding thing. But admittedly, I didn't listen to them too much, and I feel like if I want to have a full assessment, I would have to listen to them a little bit more. But rest assured, from what I heard, not bad. So I'm gonna put them in the B tier. So yeah, pretty cool from what I've heard. And then we've got the band that has a long ass name. And you will know us by the Trail of Dead. That's a fucking long name. So these are another hardcore / prog style. Funny enough, the song that I had on the playlist I do, because typically what I do for these types of tier lists is I make a playlist with at least one song by every single band that's going to be on the list so I can kind of refresh myself. That's what I've got on here. And funny enough, the lead singer kind of sounded like Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. So this just sounded like a proggier version of Green Day. So which that does lead to a positive because as you guys know, Green Day is my favorite band. Though admittedly I'm kind of deciding between that Rage Against the Machine and Fall Out Boy right now. Those have always been my top 3, but it kind of it's starting to flip flop. But yeah, because of that, I'm putting them in B tier. Interesting combination right there. Green Day meets prog. Put them together. Not a bad combination. I'm gonna be honest. And then we've got Animals as leaders. I think they're also an Australian band, if I'm not mistaken. But I do know this. They are another djent style group, and they are an instrumental group. Their music does go out pretty fucking hard, but admittedly, it starts becoming less impressive if it starts sounding kind of the same after a while, if I'm going to be honest. Again, not terrible, not bad, but similar to Sun and similar to other bands like Meshuggah, it just kind of loses its charm after a while. So I'm going to put them in the C tier. Again, not bad, but definitely isn't a band I would say is up there. And now we're getting into even more obscure stuff. The Apex Theory. So this is another band that did a little bit of nu metal adjacent stuff. I wouldn't call them a nu metal band, hence that's why they weren't on the list with the nu metal stuff. But they kind of did something similar to that. But I mean, they're another just funny band. Funny as in like, I don't think the music is very good. Like, I wouldn't call it terrible, but like, it's very generic sounding. Like the like it's very generic prog, if that makes sense. Like basic level, and I mean basic level. So again, some people probably wouldn't even count them as prog. I only count them because like they don't really fit the nu metal category, but they don't really fit like the hard rock category either. Like it sounds very similar to some of the bands we've already talked about here. So, but yeah, even on a fundamental level, I still wouldn't really recommend them. Again, not the worst thing I've ever heard, but like, yeah, I'm gonna put them in a D tier. So, and then we've got a certain fellow. Meet Arjun Anthony Lucasen. Don't know who that is? Well, he is a pretty big Dutch musician. So, yeah, like he's actually a bit of a celebrity over in the Netherlands. So yeah, like this is one of his projects. This isn't actually his main band. This is a side project called Arjun Anthony Lucasen Star 1. Wait, so there's multiple stars? Okay, all jokes aside, I'm not going to lie, this was weird. His most recent album came out last year, Revel in Time. I'm not gonna lie, that album actually does fucking slap. When I listen to it. Like, this is the definition of prog right here. Like, you know, all the singing about space federations and like, yes, these are concept albums that were like that he's singing, by the way. Most of these bands have concept albums of some sort, or just straight up rock operas like Coheed, or does Tool have a rock opera? I don't remember. But yeah, I know Muse does with the Resistance. But yeah, like it gets weird, but admittedly from what I heard, it's actually his music. He's actually a very talented guy. And we'll talk about his main band in a little bit, but as far as Star 1's concerned, A tier. Like, yeah, pretty good. I would recommend it. Much better to say than Ashes Divide. Yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't really get into this. This music was not only really boring, but also just very just bland and toothless. Again, keep in mind, I don't think this band is as bad as the other bands I'm gonna put it down this low. Because at least it's a band where I'm just kind of more apathetic about, rather than like, oh my god, I hate this band. But yeah, I'm gonna put them in F tier. There's just not really anything that sticks, and I feel bad putting them down here, but like, there's not really anything that's distinct about them per se. Even amongst prog bands, which prog bands are very distinct from each other. So like, to see a prog band not really try, yeah, I just can't get myself to put them any higher. I'm sorry. Like, again, not the worst in that tier, but like, definitely not anything that would be on the top of my recommendation. And the same thing, and truth be told, I'm going to say similar things about Astronoid. Again, they're another kind of 70s sort of spacey band. But admittedly, just kind of with a lesser quality to them, even compared to Airbag. And yeah, let me listen to them again just for the sake of being able to. Because yeah, this was pretty generic, even for a prog band is concerned. And if you're a prog band and you're generic, that's a problem. Because prog is anything but. Yeah, I'm. Shit. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've really got nothing to say about them, other than like, they just kind of sound like. When did this come out? Sounds like something from like last year. Yeah, they just kind of sound like a band that's just kind of copying dance, like they're just copying Dance Gavin Dance. So like, yeah, not really anything worth noting, to be honest. So yeah. Well, thankfully though, we've got our next group. And yeah, Arjen Lucanson strikes back. This is his main band. So, and I'm not gonna lie, this is actually probably some of the coolest stuff I've listened to in a while. So their shtick, this is his main band, but what's really cool about Arion, I don't know how to pronounce it, is they combine prog with folk music, but we're talking like medieval folk music here. And it sounds fucking awesome. Like, even borderline sounds like Baroque at points. And yeah, it's really cool to listen to. So yeah, A tier. Like, Arjun, you are a very creative man. Like, and you, at least when it comes to 2000s prog, should be like on the record books. I'm actually surprised that he doesn't get a lot of attention, at least when it comes to like prog music's concerned. Like, I kind of get it in the perspective of like general music, because again, prog is a very specific thing. But like, even then, he's not as well talked about. Like, yeah, a lot of his music has like less than 100K listeners combined from both of these, which I think is a bit of a crime. So yeah, go listen to him. Like, he deserves more recognition. So yeah. And then we got Baroness. Or Baroness, excuse me. Again, they're fine. Kind of on the slower side of things, but, you know, not the worst. I really don't like any of their album covers, though, because it's like post-medieval-ish style of album covers. I don't know. It's, again, they're kind of an average band, I would say. So, not bad, but if you're interested in sort of a slower paced music, I mean, it's better than Ghost, so like, there's that. So yeah, they're alright. Alright. You wanted weird? I'm surprised I haven't talked about this guy at all. So, and this guy's a bit of a meme in certain music circles. So, I think it's about time we talk about Buckethead. So, sorry, I can't talk about this guy without laughing. So, in the late 90s, like I said, prog was starting to pick up a little bit again. And one of the people who was leading that charge was a guy wearing a KFC bucket as a hat. And he was a member of Guns N' Roses at the time. And yeah, he was professionally known as Buckethead. So, and this guy is a fucking madman. I mean, just look at this guy's discography. Like, it's actually insane. He started making albums in 92, right? But he gained traction in the late 90s. That's not every single album that he's made. Read that.
Hold up.
294 albums. That is insane. Look,
Look at 2015. He's made not 100. He's made over 60 albums in 1 year. The dude's a fucking madman. So yeah, like, rest assured, this guy has made, yeah, even this year. Even this year, look. 358, 457. He's made 99 albums in the past 11 months. This guy's a fucking madman. I don't know how he does it, but like, he just pumps out those albums, I guess. Like, but yeah, that does lead into, well, my biggest criticism about Buckethead. Some of his stuff is really good. Like, I'd say his 1998 album, what was it called? Buckethead Land? That's the one I was looking up earlier, right? No, that's his first one. Colma, that's what it's called. This album is really damn good. But here's my two big issues with him. Number one, he's another instrumental artist for the most part. He does do collaborations with other artists, and he does, occasionally bring in someone to like do vocals. He's kind of like Santana in that way. But like, keep in mind that most of his stuff is instrumentals. But then, of course, that's the other issue, is just how many fucking albums that this motherfucker makes. Like, he's probably, for all I know, he's probably going to release another one tonight. For all I know. Like, or like even tomorrow. But that's the thing, is that, like, I question the quality of every single one of those albums. Is he just pushing them out, just to kind of meet a demand? Or is he just that good? I don't know. I'm someone of the mindset of quality over quantity. And that's my big issue with Buckethead, is just because of how much material that this guy has made. Yeah, and also, even some of his stuff isn't very great, and just isn't, like, I remember some of his stuff from the mid-2000s that, like, kind of creepy. Like, to be fair, it's more like Korn creepy. It's not like, fucked up, though his music videos are fucked up. But, yeah, that's the thing about Buckethead, is that he is very, and I mean very eccentric when it comes to his craft. So, and again, quality over quantity is at least my message about this whole thing. So, because of that, I am gonna put him in a C tier. Because again, I question the quality of all those albums. Of course, I haven't fucking listened to all those albums. I don't have the time. No one has the time. So, yeah, I guess to be fair though, I think it's better if you just do stick with his mainline albums. But even then, that is 30 separate albums right there. That's a lot of material, and that's a lot of albums released, like, even for like an artist who started in 1992. Like, that's a lot of albums. So, like, that's even more than I'm pretty sure the Melvins has released since they came out. So, let alone 325 albums. Like, that's insane. Like, but whatever. Buckethead, he's certainly an enigma. That we can at least agree with. Alright. Caligula's House. Admittedly, I actually don't remember too much from this group. Again, thankfully, I've got the thing right here. Or horse, excuse me. That's right. Okay, I remember now. Yeah, they're more on the metal side.
And they're fine. I'll put them in C tier. They're kind of sounded like Mastodon, which we'll get to Mastodon later. But yeah, they're kind of in a similar tree. So do keep that in mind. And now we get into a band that, like, I regret not having on our emo tier list, Circus Survive. So this is a band that I've been listening to actually a lot frequently. For those who don't know, this is actually Anthony Green of Seosin's. This is his other band. This is the band that he was actually with during the time that he was away from Seosin. So, yeah. And if I'm going to be honest, despite the fact that I've only started really listening to these guys this year, I'm going to put them in A tier. Like, Juturna, On Letting Go, and Blue Sky Noise are some of the best mixes of emo with prog that you probably haven't heard. So, and also, if I'm going to be honest, this is a bit of a hot take. I think Anthony Green actually fits Circa Survive more than he does with Seosin. I've mentioned this before, is that, like, when it comes to Seosin, I prefer Cove Reaver's, style with the Beatle album and with In Searching, I forgot the name of that album. I prefer that with Seosin over, what they did with the EP. I know the songs on the EP are very popular with people. And truth be told, I definitely do like the EP of Seosin, but I think that Anthony Green at least works way better with his vocals with Circa Survive. And so yeah, I kind of see it more so Seosin is Cove's band, and then Circa Survive is Anthony's band. That's kind of how I see it. And yeah, they made some fucking bangers. Especially on Blue Sky Noise with Get Out, Through the Desert Alone, Frozen Creek, The Longest Mile. Like, go check out their emo stuff, which is basically everything from 2012 back. So their first 4 albums. They are on hiatus right now, unfortunately. Although, to be fair, I think that's because Anthony is focusing more on Seosin, which, to be fair, I did see him with Seosin live. Granted, I was disappointed in the fact that they didn't play any Cove's songs. But, like, he's definitely talented in his own regard, and I do respect him. So, go check out Circa Survive. You know what? I'm going to say the same thing about Deer Hunter. Easy A tier. Another post-hardcore style of prog, and even Baroque rock. Which that's actually a pretty common mix, I notice, is that a lot of Baroque rock bands also tend to be prog bands. Not every band is like that. Panic at the Disco and Vampire Weekend are exceptions to that, but, like, I tend to notice a bit of a pattern with that. And Deer Hunter is... damn, are they good. Like, they're actually associated with another band that we're going to talk about in a little bit called The Receiving End of Sirens, another emo prog band. These guys aren't that, they're just straight up progcore, Baroque progcore. But the way that they do it, I think, is pretty good. So, worthy of a mention. Fortunately, all good things have to come to an end. We've got a band that call themselves Depswa. Yes. Depswa. Despwa. That's just a dumb name. I'm just gonna be frank. That's just a really dumb name. Like, what does that even mean? Depswa. Like, you couldn't come up with, like, a better name. It sounds like you're desperate for a better fucking name. Like, no. And just like Apex Theory, they're another band that kind of flirts with nu metal, but like they're not really a nu metal band. They're borderline on F tier, if I'm going to be honest. The only reason why they aren't is because they have really good instrumentals, but the vocalist is really bad. Like, it's actually really funny. But yeah, these guys aren't very good. I'm putting them in a very low D tier. The only reason why I'm not like I said, the only reason why I'm not putting them in F tier is because they have good instrumentals, but holy shit, the vocals. Even some of the production is very questionable with this band. Like, granted, they're a lesser known band as well, so I don't want to give them too much shit, because maybe they just didn't have too much of a budget, but like, yeah, these guys are not. Take it away, Fantano.
It's not good.
Yeah, no. So yeah, not really worth mentioning, if that makes sense. Like, again, it's very flat, very, very flat production. And again, you guys know that I'm someone who's been paying more attention to like production styles. And yeah, their production's not very good. So, all right. Next up, Devin Townsend. So this is actually another solo project. Just a guy in general. I don't remember what his original band was, but I know it wasn't a prog band. It was actually a death metal band. So this is just his solo prog stuff. There it is. Oh yeah, he's Canadian. He's from British Columbia. Okay, he has worked with Steve Vai though. So that's something worth note. But yeah, we're talking about mostly his solo stuff. It's fine. Again, if I'm going to be honest, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about here is going to be probably in like the B or C tier. It's just serviceable enough. Prog. So, nothing too terrible. Nothing too great, though. So, yeah. Oh boy, we've got ourselves another band with the fandom being fucking weird. Let's talk about Dream Theater. Yep, get your fucking memes out of the way about Dream Theater. All your soy jacks, whatever. Just throw them out right now. Because yeah, Dream Theater is another one of these types of bands that has that kind of fan base. Though I will say this about Dream Theater. They're the same way how I feel about Buckethead. But not for the same reasons. Like, Buckethead obviously just, like, he's a very talented guy. But, like, I question the quality of his music. But not by its quantity with Dream Theater, of course, because Dream Theater has way less albums. But I guess I just more so question why they are considered to be, like, the top dog when it comes to prog music. Them and Radiohead, honestly, are very similar in that regard. And it just kind of weird. I don't know. Like, to be fair, Dream Theater was one of the bands that kind of brought prog into a more of a popular stance after the 80s. They were one of the first one of the first prog bands to kind of gain traction again. So that's pretty cool. And to be fair, I think that they are good enough on their own but I'm gonna put them in the same thing as Radiohead, mostly just because like they're a band that I wouldn't listen to all the time. So I'm gonna put them in B tier. I respect them, but I would not say that like I wouldn't say they're better than Muse or Tool. Like, I don't think anyone is willing to argue that. So they're more so a band that walked so that those bands could run. That's kind of how I see Dream Theater. So, yeah. And then we got Epica. A very similar band to Evanescence, actually, where, though definitely a Baroque rock band, they are heavy in their prog influence as well. And they are really damn good. I'm putting them in A tier. I don't know if I would say that they are better than Evanescence, but I definitely would say that they are very talented in their own within their own regard. And I would definitely say that they're worth a listen. So, go check them out. All right, The Flower King. Admittedly, again, this is another band that I kind of need to take another listen to. So, again, there's a lot. Again, we cover as much as we can here. That doesn't mean I'm too familiar with everything. Alright, another old school prog influenced band with a little bit of that spaciness that I mentioned. C tier. They're kind of the same way how I feel about Airbag. So, you know. That's all I gotta really say about them. Is that the same feelings about Airbag as these guys. Not bad, but I've seen better. Oh boy. Greta Van Fleet. Another band that I'm surprised I have not talked about. Despite the fact that they've been fucking blowing up in the past 5 years. So, of course, everyone's saying that they're a fucking knockoff of Pink Floyd. They're a ripoff. All that fun stuff. I am not on that camp when it comes to Greta Van Fleet. I am on the camp, however, who, similar to Ghost, is not the biggest fan. Though I think I do prefer Greta Van Fleet over Ghost. No, I do prefer them over Ghost. That is a fact. Mostly because, unlike Ghost, they don't fucking bore me. So, and I will even say this. Some of their stuff off of their debut, I think was pretty good. Everything after that, though, oh boy. To be fair though, they're still a relatively new band, so I don't want to give them too much shit. But all I gotta say is, I want them to evolve past being I want them to evolve past just copying a lot of the bands from the 70s. Like, if they can carve out their own identity, then I would give them a little bit more respect. So, again, I'm not blaming... Again, it's not that I'm against them taking that at first, but if you stick around with that, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem. So, make it your own thing. They haven't been doing that. And that's where my problem is that they're not evolving past that. So I'm going to put them in C tier. So yeah. That's where my issue with them lies. Alright, we got ourselves another band that I've been listening to a lot, and honestly, I've already grown to love. especially since they actually just dropped a new album earlier this year. I discovered them before they even announced their album. They're a band called Hail the Sun. They are another post-hardcore. I also call them emo because their first several albums are very, very influenced by emo. I can tell. But like starting with their 2016 record, they started to go into a more. They started to sort of combine that with prog. They're also kind of associated with like this whole swancore scene with Dance Gavin Dance and Circa Survive and Fall of Troy. They're kind of in that same thing. Yeah, Circa Survive's kind of in that, but like on the fringes. But yeah, Hail the Sun is definitely in that same category, though more emo. And well, same thing as Circa Survive, A tier. Like, though I definitely do prefer their emo / post-hardcore stuff over their general prog stuff, but that's not to discount their prog stuff, especially their most recent album. Go check it out. Go check out Hail the Sun. They deserve it. Like, funny enough, I actually do kind of see them as sort of a spiritual successor to Chiodos, because they are very, very, very similar to Chiodos. Just minus the Baroque parts. So yeah, that's kind of how I see them. Is that they're kind of like a Chiodos if you took out the Baroque parts. So, which is still a pretty good base. It's just that was the cherry on top for Chiodos, though, which is why I'm putting them. Which is why I put Chiodos in S tier, because their way of using those Baroque elements is what elevates them so high for me. Whereas, you know, if you take them out, they're still good, but not as good. So that's kind of how I feel about a band called Hail the Sun. Funny enough, they actually were my top 5 listened to band, at least according to my Spotify, Wrapped. So that's interesting. So funny enough, I did not mention that, but Coheed and Cambria was my most listened to band on Spotify. Although to be fair, my top 3 were the same exact from last year. Census Fail, Coheed and Cambria, and the Used were last year. Only Coheed and Census Fail swapped. And then yeah, Fall Out Boy because of the new album instead of MCR, but whatever. I kind of forgot to mention that with Coheed. But anyways, let's move on. Carnival, Australian prog band, who also kind of started off as a prog new metal band, but quickly went after that. But you know what? Not only do I think these guys are pretty damn good, dare I say it, I'm also going to put them in the S tier. Like, in terms of how you do prog rock right, and I mean pure prog rock, they are one of the examples I'm going to use. They are so damn good with it. And even when they were doing the new metal prog stuff with their debut, that was solid. Yeah, Thermia, that's what it's called. That was their first album. Like, and then, yeah, Asymmetry is probably one of the best albums of 2009. I will fight people on that one. And even the stuff that they did afterwards, really good. They haven't released an album in a while though, so hopefully that comes out real soon. But rest assured, Carnival is a band that I would recommend, especially if you want more Australian prog. I think they are definitely the best in that category. All right, Catatonia. Another weird name. Again, prog bands have weird fucking names. Yeah, let me listen to this again. not really new metal, but definitely like heavy metal, maybe death metal adjacent. It's fine. They're fine. So yeah, definitely not a band that I would listen to continuously, but they're okay. Gotta really be into, you know, a heavier sound. So that's all I gotta say about them. Oh boy. Here we go, guys. There's another band with a dumb name. And all the fucking nerds are gonna be mad at me on this one, but I don't care. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. That is a really dumb name. Like, Lizard Wizard. I hate how that rhymes, first of all. And what the fuck is a gizzard? Like, I'm sorry, but like, I hate the name. It's a dumb name. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than like, I hate the fact that there's an alliterative. It's an alliterative name. I fucking hate that. Not alliterative, like rhyming name. Like, I don't like that with bands. If you're gonna rhyme, do it in the song. Don't do it in the fucking title. Like, don't do it in the band title. Like, I've always never liked that. And I'm just gonna be frank. This is music that not only is definitely not for me, but I'm gonna be honest. This is definitely not music for everyone. It's. I like to call it the type of nerdcore music that, like, the average, 26-year-old, just kind of found out and was tripping on acid for. Yeah, I don't like this band. It's it's just too contemporary psychedelic for me. And I don't like psychedelic. It's basically just stoner music. That's what this is. Okay, to be fair, Tool stoner music, but like, it's hipster stoner music. I don't like that. So people are gonna be fucking mad at me about this one, but I'm putting them in after. I really don't like these guys. Again, they have a dumb name. Their music is just a bit. It's too, like, jazz psychedelic adjacent. Like, I don't even know what the fuck to call this shit. Like, and I don't know. They're just one of those types of bands. To be fair, it may not just be for me, but this is definitely not a style that I'm not into at all. Like, oh my god. Great. Now all the fucking King Gizzard fans are gonna be fucking mad at me. To help us all. Alright, let's turn it around. Lacuna Coil. Italian band, I think. Yes, Italian. Sort of experimental prog, not more symphonic prog style. With some new metal. Pretty good. Also on Guitar Hero 3 soundtrack. Forgot about that. I guess I just like it whenever they kind of dip away from the prog stuff, if I'm gonna be honest. That's when I think they are really good. Obviously, Karma Code, I think, is real. I also like Kamalize. Like, Kamalize, I think, is actually a pretty good record in its own, like, in its own right. Yeah, even Shadow Life. So, yeah, like, definitely a band that, if you're more interested in more sort of more gloomy style of prog, they're worth a listen. So yeah, like, I'd recommend them in that regard. All right, leprous. That sounds like a disease. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what they sounded like. So that's right, the spaceship stuff. Yeah, these guys kind of sound like actually, okay, let me make sure I check the dates before I okay. Yep. Yeah, these guys kind of sound like a Muse clone. Like, that's kind of the vibe I get with them. Not a bad Muse knockoff band, but you can definitely tell that they were heavily inspired by Muse for sure. So yeah, I'm gonna put them in a C tier. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about them. All right, and then we've got the Mars Volta. So if you guys remember in our emo tier list, you may have remembered a band called At the Drive-In. Well, the lead singer of that band, along with his, I think it's his brother, they disbanded that band initially. That band is back now, I think. No, Mars Volta's back. Well, after At the Drive-In first broke up, they formed the Mars Volta, a post-hardcore mixed with 70s prog. Usually I don't like them going back to the 70s. But in this case, especially in the Comatorium, which is their first album, god damn it, I'm just gonna straight up say it, that album was really damn good. Their recent self-titled album was also pretty good. Their 2000, I think, 6 record, I can't think of its name for the love of me. Again, I don't listen to the Mars Volta too often outside of The Louse in the Comatorium. That's what it's called. Excuse my language. What is it called? Amputecture. Yeah, and The Venom and Goliath. Dare I say it, those are some of the best albums you've never heard from that decade, from the 2000s. So yeah, like, honestly, I'm just gonna straight up say it, Mars Volta is way better than At the Drive-In. Not to say that I put At the Drive-In in D tier. I would probably put them more in a C tier nowadays. But like, damn it, I'll say it, Mars Volta, easy A tier. Go listen to the Mars Volta. Like, really underrated stuff. Like, if you take anything away from this list, at least, out of the newer bands that we've talked about, listen to Deloused in the Comatorium. You will not regret it. Especially since this year was his 20th anniversary, so give respect. Yeah, pay your respects now before it's too late. So, yeah. Alright, next up. Here we go. Mastodon. The masters of the past 20 years when it comes to prog. So, and, well, to be fair, I have not listened to too much of their stuff. I listened to their first few albums, and I thought that they were pretty good. I do need to listen to them just a little bit more. I just ran out of time, so, like, haven't been able to get into that too much, but from what I've heard, really talented, and I can see where the hype lies, so I'll put them in a high B. Maybe in a few weeks that will change to a low A, but definitely worth a mention. All right. The Mayan Flower. I know you guys can't fucking see that. They don't have a yeah, I couldn't find like a better logo for them. I am gonna don't worry. These lists do get updated, so if there's a band that you can barely tell who it is, I can change the pictures. So most of these were pretty good, so we don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, the Mayan the Mayan fuck. It's again these freaking the Mayan Factor. That's what it's called. Oh, again another sort of average sort of prog band, more influenced by Mesoamerican music. So that's pretty cool. That's the name, Mayan Factor. So yeah, I would definitely say that they're they're better than most of these bands that are on this, like in the C tier, at least when it comes to pure prog. But I would also say that like they're a very specific taste. So a lot of these are, and that's the thing about prog, is that you gotta really like the sound for you to be able to enjoy it. So yeah. Alright. I think that's minus of something. Minus the bear. That's right. Minus the bear. I don't remember if I liked these guys or not again. Yeah, another one of these sort of spacey bands. Yeah, I'll put them in the seats here. So yeah, another sort of Muse kind of band. So take that for what you will. All right, let's talk about Mr. Bungle. Okay, so this is a side project of what's his face? I can't think of his name. He's the guy from Faith No More. My God, I can't think of his fucking name. Mike Patton. That's right. Yeah, this is a Mike Patton side project that he did back in the 90s and brought back in 2020. So yeah. I wish I had kinder things to say about Mr. Bungle, but like I really don't like this shit. Again, this is another one of those things where it's like you're really gonna fucking love this shit or you're really gonna fucking hate it. And unfortunately, I'm on the latter camp. I really don't like this shit. Like, I mean, first of all, the album art of their debut is fucking creepy as hell. But more importantly, it's all over the fucking place. Like, it just, especially their first album, it feels so disjointed. Like, which I know that is the purpose, like, to just kind of make it feel uneasy, but I just think that they kind of did it in the wrong way. It just kind of feels more disorienting rather than just kind of unsettling on purpose. And yeah, I just don't think it worked here. And it doesn't help that, like, I mean, I can't help but compare this to Faith No More because it's Mike Patton. I know technically he wasn't around until Epic came out. Well, not Epic, the fucking, yeah, their third album. But like, that's what more people know him from, is Faith No More. And this is definitely not a Faith No More. I think this was just an experiment that just kind of failed. Not his fault. Mike Patton's still a very talented guy, but yeah, I really don't like Mr. Bungle at all. The only reason why I'm not going to put it in F tier is because, like, funny enough, I think that the album that they did their, comeback with, I think was their best work. So, yeah. I would recommend that, but definitely not their stuff from the 90s. So, I just think it's one of those instances where it's shit that's really dated in that decade. So, no thanks. All right, Myrath. This is another Middle Eastern based group. So they bring in a lot of Middle Eastern sounds, and they even have a lot of Baroque elements as well. And I think their combination is really cool. Like, sort of Arab mixed music, or even Turkish mixed music. Again, you guys already know I really like Middle Eastern stuff. I think it works so well, and I just wish it was way more common. It's just, unfortunately, because of just how strict a lot of, music is in those parts of the world. Yeah, it's not very common to see a lot of, Middle Eastern, let alone popular Middle Eastern musicians. Like, again, Manga has I think around 2 million listeners on Spotify. And even despite that, my friends, a few of my friends who are deep into music, they've never even heard of them, but I have. So, despite the fact that they have 2 million listeners, guess how much Myrath has? Definitely less than 500K, that's for sure. And that's a shame because, yeah, their mix of traditional music with metal and prog is so good. A tier. Go check them out. Highly recommend them. All right. All right, here we go. We've got two bands that have ocean in their title. The Ocean and Ocean Size. Not to be confused between the either of them. They're two completely different bands. All right, The Ocean. Yeah, they're kind of a Tool knockoff band. Not a bad Tool knockoff, but definitely could be better. So C tier it is. I'm gonna try to speed things up just a little bit, by the way, unless if it's an important band. And then Ocean Size. Kind of sound like Chevelle, honestly. Yeah, they kind of sound like Chevelle. Yeah, not too different. C tier. So yeah, take that for what you will. All right, Opeth. Another pretty big name in Prague, so we're gonna have to talk about them. And funny enough, kind of the same way with Mastodon. I need to listen to more of them. But from what I've heard, I liked. So I'm putting them in the high B, low A category. So, yeah. Opeth and Mastodon. I need to hear just a little bit more from both of them. Especially since, those are pure prog. Whereas with Tool, they're kind of more of a metal, grunge, prog hybrid band. So, yeah, when it comes to, I'll definitely listen to some more Mastodon and Opeth. Maybe it'll be a situation like Killswitch and Gage and Trivium for me, where it's like I didn't hear them too much, but from what I heard from both of them, I liked. Could be the same thing for Mastodon and Opeth, but for prog. Who knows? So, yeah, right. And now we've got OSI. That is definitely a name. I'm pretty sure it's an acronym for something. Yeah, more on the electronic side. Yeah, like electronic and post-grunge is from what I'm hearing. And yeah, I like this style. Very also kind of Chevelle-like, but funny enough, later Chevelle, despite the fact that, like, you know, this album was from 2009. Yeah, it sounds like what Chevelle would have eventually become. And I don't know, I just really like that mix between like electro rock and prog that they've got going. So put them in the B tier. All right. Pain of Salvation. Yeah, we got ourselves another sort of old school sort of prog thing going on here. They're okay. Definitely would say that, like, yeah, a bit slower. Again, wish it was just a little bit faster, but you could do worse. All right, and then we've got Palms. So this is actually a Chino Moreno side project. Chino Moreno of Deftones. This is a side project that he did with, I think, a supergroup, if I'm not mistaken. And as you can probably imagine, I do like Palms. A tier. I still prefer Deftones, but as far as the side project goes, yeah, it's pretty good. I would recommend it. So, very similar to Deftones, just less metal and more just pure prog rock. So, that's pretty cool in that respect. And now we've got Peach GB. Another sort of grungy sort of group. Yeah, like electronic grunge sort of thing going on here. They are slower, but I think I prefer them over Palms. Pain of Salvation, that's what they're called. Sorry. Again, some of these I just added yesterday, so like please bear in mind with some of these. But yeah, like they're definitely worth noting in terms of, like, 90s prog. There's barely any information on them. Like, yeah, they don't even have a Wikipedia page. So yeah, that's sad. All right. Next up, Periphery. Oh boy. Another Degent group. And another band with one of those fandoms. Specifically, they like to do a lot of jokes that I think are disgusting. Yeah, here's my thing about Periphery. Is that they just kind of feel like a lesser Architects. Not to say that they are bad. But I do think that they are just kind of, like I said, they're just Architects but lesser. Not to say that that's inherently bad, but it does kind of make it to where I kind of wish they were just a little bit better. And yeah, some of their lyrics are kind of questionable at best. But regardless, I would still probably put them in B tier. So they're worthy of recognition. Okay. Here we go. Next up, we've got the Pineapple Thief, another really dumb name. God, what is up with these names? I don't like prog band names, man. I don't understand. Okay, this kind of sounds like OG Doom music. If it was very, like, spacey. That's really funny. Yeah, as you can probably tell, like, again, prog is not my favorite genre. I do give it a bit more respect than, like, as a matter of fact, I'm definitely giving this way better scores overall. But yeah, as for Pineapple Thief, yeah, again, they're just kind of on the lower half. But again, I wouldn't say that they're anything that's, like, terrible. Just kind of average again. More sort of space rocky prog stuff. So all right, one band that I definitely cannot say is generic is Polyphia. They are a really new band. I think they just started releasing music, like, okay, never mind. They've been around since 2014. Okay. Never mind. Well, I've got a confession. It should be no surprise to any of you that I don't really like a lot of, mainstream music. And I especially abhor specific types of music, specifically trap. I hate trap music. And this is talking to someone who's talked to so many people who tried to get me into it, and I just can't stand it. I hate the fucking tap beats that happen every fucking millisecond. It drives me insane. And a lot of the trap music that has lyrics, I find the lyrics to be ultra cringe. So, I don't like trap. That being said, this is a band that combines prog with trap. Kind of. At first, when I listened to this, I thought this was going to be the fucking worst thing in the world. Because, yeah, I fucking hate trap music. I never liked trap music. And there's nothing that will ever convince me that trap music is inherently good. And you know what? I'm going to listen to this a little bit more right now, just to make sure that, because admittedly, the one song I did listen to, it featured Chino Marino, so I'm already kind of biased with it anyways. Did not sound bad. Yeah, so that being said, Polyphia doesn't really sound like trap per se. It does sound a lot like electro rock for sure. So yeah, like, I wouldn't say like all of their songs, have that trap thing. And you know what? Because I think they were able to actually balance out those trap beats with metal and prog at that, I think they deserve a medal for that one. So I'm going to put them in B tier. Simply off the basis that they're the one thing that's associated with trap that I don't hate, and even then, I wouldn't even really call them trap. So, like, damn, they deserve a fucking medal. Alright, Porcupine Tree. God help us all, another band that, like, brings out the fucking weirdos. Though not as much, because they aren't as talked about as much. But yeah, another, like, metal-based band. I guess they're okay. I'll put them in the B tier. So yeah, they're fine. All right. great. Here we go. This is a fucking disgusting name. I'm just gonna call them Pushifer. So this is another Maynard Maynard Keenan side project. You know, the guy from Tool. This is another side project of his. Yeah, I think this is probably their weakest project. So not terrible, but Perfect Circle and Tool are just better, and they don't have as weird names. I know Tool has their moments for sure. Don't get it twisted, but yeah, it just kind of makes that the focal point here, and it just kind of ends up being more cringy than, like, you know, funny or even just kind of introspective or whatever. So that's kind of how I see this group. Yeah, Maynard, just stick to Tool or Perfect Circle, please. That's all I gotta say about that. And then we've got the receiving end of Sirens. So this is another emo prog band. And, well, considering the trend of other emo prog bands, I'm a little bit biased here, but I'm going to put them in A tier. So I will say this, though. Their second album is way better than their first. Not to say that their first album's bad, but yeah, their second album is way, way, way better. And yes, this is the band that's kind of associated with Deer Hunter. But yeah, like, what's it called? Yeah, The Earth Sings Me. The Earth Sings Me For Me. That album is so damn good. Like, in terms of emo prog, go check it out. Like, yeah, like, there's some songs that just bring out the feels, man. Yeah, like Swallow People Whole. Like, that's the first song off the album. And that alone is so damn good. So, again, their first album's a bit more on the post-hardcore prog side of things. Yeah, it's called Between the Heart and the Synapse. And while that one is pretty good, their second album is even better. It's a concept album too, so there's a lot of just themes about just kind of the end of the world and just kind of what it means to kind of human society, like human nature means as a whole. Like, there's a lot of just introspective stuff. So I would definitely recommend them for sure. Yeah, go check them out. All right. Rishlu, another Australian, I think, band that has another weird name and even weirder album covers. I guess they're kind of I guess they're Australian Tool, which is funny because the band after that is Swedish Tool. So, which I guess if we're gonna be ranking them, Rishlu is a C tier, and Sewing, that's, I think that, or Sewn, I don't know how to pronounce it, is a B tier. I think they're both Tool copies. Though I think if I'm gonna be honest, I think that Sewn is the better Tool copy than Rishlu. They just kind of do that thing just a little bit better. But yeah, rest assured, these two are very similar to each other, and of course Tool. So to give them, again, a lot of bands were heavily inspired by either, because that's something that I've noticed with this list, is that you either got the bands that copied Dream Theater, the bands that copied Muse, or the bands that copied Tool. Like, those are like kind of the three bands that brought the catalyst of prog after the 90s. So Yeah, like a lot of bands took from those three specifically. It's kind of like how with the new metal tier list, I noticed that there were either a lot of Rage Against the Machine clones, Korn clones, or Marilyn Manson clones. Like, there was rarely anything that was inspired by like another band. It's kind of the same thing here, and that's kind of why I'm saying this is average or even above average, is because a lot of these bands kind of they do their own thing, of course. Unlike the new metal bands, where it was just copies of copies of copies. There's a lot more just kind of inspiration while doing their own thing here, for the most part. Greta Van Fleet obviously being my biggest kind of thing with them. But, yeah. Alright. Next up, we've got freaking The Sound of Contact. Listen, they only had one album from 2013. Yeah, C's here. Another sort of, spacey band. It's just kind of, and I guess kind of pop rock. So yeah, they're just whatever. I guess you can check them out, but do keep in mind that, like, yeah, there's definitely better stuff. All right, Spirit Box, the latest band to kind of kick out. And to be fair, yes, just like with Tala, I'm kind of jealous about the fact that they came after my group Teenage Robots and were successful, but they do deserve the recognition. Like, A tier. They were able to do prog and metalcore in a very, very, very interesting way, and just kind of do like a more melodic, like they're basically if like Evanescence went metalcore. That's kind of how I see them, and I think that combination really works in their favor. Like, they're very different from Evanescence, don't get me wrong, but like that's the best comparison. But even then, I would say even with that comparison, they go for a more melodic. No, not melodic. Yeah, they go for a more melodic take, whereas Evanescence is more symphonic. And I think that distinction, makes them break out just a little bit more. So, hell yeah, to Spirit Box. All right, Symphony X. Yeah, we got ourselves another sort of kind of Dream Theater thing going on here. Yeah, average. Yeah, I mean, they again keep in mind that like my opinions between all of the bands in B and C, well, most of the bands in B or C, they can flip flop. Some of them I'm not gonna change. Pearl Jam, Coheed, and Pierce the Veil, though, and I guess Dance Gavin Dance, those are definitely gonna stay, in the B tier and maybe into the A tier, but definitely not down to C. I'm just kind of more just it's more just kind of vibe reading at this point. So, and that's kind of how I'm feeling, is that Symphony X is just another Dream Theater, follower, I guess. So, thankfully though, a band that I'm going to be a bit more kind to is Tesseract. Another degent band, although they are less thrashy and they're more just straight up prog. So, and yeah, use of just sort of that math core-y polyrhythm stuff, I think lends themselves a bit more distinct than most of these other groups. They did come out with an album recently, and I thought that album was pretty good. So, and their 2018 record slaps. So, they're going to the A tier. So yeah, I recommend them. So, they're not the most well-known band, but like, again, like I said, their singles especially are really good, and even like a lot of their stuff outside of the singles. Yeah, like Sonder, that album is, yeah, I think it's really good. And I think it's wait, is Polaris the album? Oh yeah, that was, yeah, Odyssey and Polaris was a double album. Yeah, those albums were, again, generally speaking, I would say that as far as like that style of prog goes, I honestly do think they're probably the best that does that style. So yeah, I'd say they're the best Dagent style band. So, or at least they're the one that I prefer the most. Even more so than Meshuggah. Alright, next up. Yeah, we're already almost done with the list. Holy shit. And yeah, we've only been streaming for almost 3 hours. So that's pretty good. They're called Transatlantic, named after the fact that it's a bunch of guys from different parts of, the Atlantic. Yeah, and this stuff's very, 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 very 70s and 80s inspired prog. Which, you know what that most likely is going to lead to? C tier. Again, not bad, but yeah. That's something I would say is too interesting. And then we've got a bit of a meme. As I mean a bit of a meme, I mean just a straight up meme. 12-Foot Ninja. A nu metal Australian prog band that, or at least they started off as kind of a nu metal thing. I will say I don't like all of their stuff. I do like some of their stuff though, so I'm gonna put them in B tier. I think I just more so like select songs, and even some of those select songs aren't particularly singles, which that is something that I'm just gonna be straight up honest is probably a good thing, because like here's my take when it comes to music in general. Usually people focus on the singles of a band. Like, they just listen to the top singles and that's it. If you're able to get someone hooked into a few of your deep cuts, that's a good sign that you're able to do stuff. Like, you're able to make music and make it pretty well beyond just trying to, sell to a mass market. So I respect that. I guess my only thing is yeah, they're very infrequent when it comes to album releases. That's one thing. I mean, to be fair, Tool is too, so like that's not too much of a complaint. But like, kind of like Primus, they're a weird band. Not as weird as Primus, but similar sort of thing going on here. Except an actual nu metal band. So, which, yeah, I know I didn't add them in nu metal again. Well, fucking, I'll be revising these lists. Don't worry. So, but from what but the stuff I do like just enough. for them to warrant themselves into the B tier. All right. We're getting into the last few bands. Tier or Tire. These guys are what people have deemed Viking metal. Again, it's not really Viking metal, it's more so folk rock, but that folk rock just so happens to be Viking based. And these guys combined that with prog. So think like a combination of like stereotypical Viking music and prog music. That's what Tire is, or Tier. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think they're I want to say they're Dutch. I'm not gonna fucking. Okay, Faroe. That's technically Danish territory. Okay, so yeah, they're from the Faroe Islands, which is owned by Denmark. Just kind of in between Iceland and the UK. So yeah, obvious inspiration right there. And yeah, they're pretty good. So B tier. Similar to Sabaton, at least in terms of tone. So yeah, I'd say they're like a combination of Irion and Sabaton, honestly. That's kind of their vibe. And yeah, they do pretty good with that. So yeah, recommendation right there. And again, it's similar to the whole fucking pirate metal thing, except for Vikings. So if that interests you, well, there you go. All right. And then we've got the Von Hersten brothers. Yeah, okay, they're kind of more generic, like hard rocky inspired. So I'm gonna put them in the C tier. Again, it's like it's kind of the same problem with like the Apex Theory and Depswa. Not as bad as both of those, of course. But yeah, their music's just a bit more on the generic side, which for prog isn't necessarily the best thing. So yeah, do keep that in mind. So again, I know they have the fucking, they're doing the whole thing, but like, again, that doesn't mean that you're a good guitar player, doesn't mean that's going to keep people's attention. Like, again, that's not me discounting the talent of a guitar solo and a guitar player. I've had this for 6 years, and so I can definitely understand where, that, people take years to practice something like this. And it's really awesome to be able to hear something like that live. And I do respect that. However, you also have to keep in mind that guitar riffs don't mean everything when it comes to getting an audience's attention. And, well, to be blunt, bands like Rage Against the Machine and Korn pretty much proved that. As, well, people say that grunge killed the guitar solo. Guitar solos weren't ever killed. They were just not made. They just stopped being popular. People say that grunge killed the guitar solo, but honestly, it was because, well, glam was so fucking lame. But then bands like Rage Against the Machine and Korn came around with guitarists that proved that you can be a good guitarist without doing all this shit. Again, like, and it doesn't help that a lot of these bands have music that's longer than 5 minutes. Like, not that that's a bad thing inherently, but like a lot of the time there is the saying, if your song is longer than 5 minutes, you're basically jerking off. Hate to be vulgar right there, but it's kind of true. So yeah, there's that. Well, last but not least, we've got Woods of Ypres. Not really a traditional prog band. As a matter of fact, they're more of a death metal band, but they have enough elements to where they count. And because of that, you already know my bias. C tier. So yeah, just kind of, if you're more into that melodic, like death metal stuff, that's definitely for you, but that's not really something that I would say is for me, personally anyways. So, but yeah, that's everything that is on the list. So, definitely a bit more positive this time around. Yeah, I know we went really fast, but generally speaking, I'd say that this was definitely more positive. And it's a pretty good thing that we, talked about some new stuff that was on the list. Of course, you guys already knew. What's the bonus band of the night? Well, I already mentioned them earlier. Faith No More. So, again, kind of breaking the rule, but that's why it's the secret band. So, because, like I said, prog music kind of died after the 70s, at least a little bit. Then, by 1989, there was a band. To be fair, they existed since since 79. But they didn't start making albums until 85. But a little kid named Mike Patton came around and joined a band that just recently got their singer thrown out. And, well, in 1989, they would eventually release the hit album The Real Thing. This is an album that I would definitely say was a divergent point between old school prog and new school prog. And this is the album that pretty much inspired a bunch of other bands from other different genres, specifically nu metal, rap rock, prog, and everything else under the alternative banner. So this was a pretty monumental album. And, well, truth be told, yes, I don't really talk about stuff from before the 90s. This album came out in 89. But I'm just going to be blunt and say this is the best album of 1989. With a close contender being Mother's Milk by Red Hot Chili Peppers. Though that's a whole other story. And yes, I've already mentioned this plenty of times before. I'm not someone who really believes in funk rock or funk metal as a full entire genre, mostly because a lot of the bands that are considered either or of those can just be lumped into other genres. Red Hot Chili Peppers, I consider them more to be just a general rap rock band. Primus, you already saw, I consider them to be prog. And Faith No More, same thing. Prog mixed with heavy metal, and, well, at least in the case of the song Epic, definitely rap rock. Not fully rap rock for, Faith No More's entire catalog. As a matter of fact, like, a lot of other stuff actually fits more in with, like, thrash or hell, even glam at least a little bit. I would definitely say that they at least inherit the prog name. And I believe that they, along with Dream Theater, were kind of the catalysts for modern prog to continue. So, and again, Faith No More in general is just kind of an important band to talk about anyways, since, like I said, they inspired so many bands, even just beyond prog music. So, many of the bands that we've talked about on the list, well, on the Slang Army Tier List series. So I'm going to put them in the A tier category. So, because I think that they deserve recognition for their crowning achievements when it comes to, well, yeah, the real world, as well as their 1992 album, or the real thing, excuse me, Angel Dust. No, not that Angel Dust. So, yeah, and King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime was also pretty good. So, and even, I'll even dare say this, as someone who doesn't really care about a lot of stuff from the 80s, Introduce Yourself was actually a pretty good record, even though that Mike Patton wasn't even in the band yet. So yeah, generally speaking, I would definitely say that Faith No More earn their recognition in rock history. So I think they were even indicted into... Were they indicted into the Hall of Fame? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I want to say they... Let me look it up. Let me look it up. All right, here we go. Inductees. Yeah, I know. We're taking a little bit of a detour, but that's only because yeah, we got done with this pretty quick. Okay, yeah, Rage Against the Machine did just this year too. Damn. Yeah, I remember they were nominated multiple times. Okay, yeah, it doesn't look like they've been indicted. Okay, I know they've been nominated several times, though. That I do know. But yeah, wait, yeah, let me check. At least I thought they were. Whatever, that doesn't matter. That's a whole other discussion. Yeah, stuff like the Hall of Fame and like the award ceremonies, that's a whole other topic. But anyways, that is the Prague tier list. So I know we got this one done very quickly. Yeah, 3 hours. So I mean, that's half the time that of like other tier lists. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, I'm definitely happy that I was able to do another band tier list. Hopefully this isn't going to ruffle too many feathers. Again, prog music in general, I'm a bit more kinder to, but like it's not a genre that I would say I listen to regularly, so do keep that in mind. I'm just glad that I was even able to, get back into the swing of things, at least when it comes to this. And of course, if you guys want to use this list yourself, obviously check out it on Tier Maker, as well as the other lists that I've done in the past. So I will be updating those throughout next month. So stay tuned for whenever stay tuned for whenever the updated tier lists come to fruition. But either way, that's going to be it for tonight. I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you guys did, make sure to hit that follow button down below and turn the bell icon so that you'll be notified exactly when I'm streaming. While you guys are at it, make sure to check out the links down below, specifically the Discord and YouTube. And if you guys haven't already, you can also hit the subscribe button. If you can't necessarily do that, that's completely fine. I'm just glad the guys took time to watch this. Sorry, I just had a brain thing. But yeah, if that's completely fine if you guys can't subscribe, that I'm just glad the guys took time to watch this. Regardless of all that though, just make sure to share the stream to other people as well and continue to be awesome people. And again, if you guys can, feel free to share your lists in the Discord down below. I'll make sure that this link gets linked down there so that you guys can check this out, because all these lists are public. But in any event, I hope you guys
enjoy, and I'll see you guys next week. So again, I'll be gone for the next couple of days. But yeah, I'll hope to see you guys in the future. So, and let me know if you want to see other types of if you want me to do more of these types of lists. I'm always welcome to new ideas from you guys. But until then, I hope to see you guys on the next one. So, have a good night, guys. Bye.